Hello and welcome to the Aussie Football Passport, your one-stop pod for updates on your favourite Aussie men and women who are playing their club careers abroad. I'm your host, Alex, and there is plenty of news to bring you. We've got the second game from the Matildas series against New Zealand, news from our Young Matildas series against South Korea, the Socceroos World Cup draw, and of course, our usual wrap of club action. Let's wait no further and get straight into it with the headlines. Let's kick it off with our Young Socceroos, who have announced their 20-player squad for the upcoming SPS Cup in Japan in December. Richard Garcia will lead the squad in the role of head coach, with usual head coach Trevor Morgan unable to attend the tournament due to his commitments as Football Australia's interim technical director. The squad was, however, selected by both Morgan and Garcia and comprises of only players playing in Australia and Japan, with 13 debutants making the trip with the squad. There are a couple of familiar surnames in the squad as well, in the form of Aloisi and McAllister. Ross Aloisi's son, Matthias, and Dylan McAllister's son, Matthias. Different spelling, don't worry, folks, in the side. And it signals the change of, I guess, the next generation of former Socceroos sons coming through. We've already seen Paul Ocon-Engsler in the senior side and that under-20 side that went to the World Cup. So really fantastic to see, but it also makes you feel a little bit old, doesn't it? Anyway, moving on. The Young Matildas capped off a pivotal year with a statement 2-match series win over South Korea. They comfortably beat the South Koreans in the first match 1-0, although the scoreline is pretty fair to say didn't reflect Australia's dominance in that one. The Young Matildas then rode out a fierce early start from Korea in the second match before taking control and scoring 4 times in that one. Now, whilst we're talking about Matildas, let's move on to the senior squad, who have ended the year also with a victory in the form of a 2-0 win over New Zealand in Adelaide. Alana Kennedy opened the scoring in the first half with an absolute belter of a goal before Hayley Rasso sealed the result in the second half. Joe Montemuro made 6 changes to the starting 11 after the team's comprehensive 5-0 victory over the same opponent on Friday evening. The headline change was Sam Kerr, who replaced Amy Sayer in the front 3 to make her first Matilda start at home in 736 days. Can you believe it? That is a long time, but great to see Sam back. Tegan Micah replaced Mackenzie Arnold in goals, while Caitlin Torpey and Claire Hunt were the defensive changes, slotting in for Courtney Nevin and Winona Heatley. The midfield saw a reshuffle as well, as Claire Wheeler and Alana Kennedy started in place of Kyra Cooney-Cross and Katrina Gorry. Matilda's captain, Sam Kerr, only played the opening 45 minutes in her first match at home on Australian soil for over 2 years. Coach Joe Montemuro stated that it was a contentious decision made by the medical staff rather than him or Sam Kerr. Sam Kerr also backed it up in the post-match press conference. This is within the context, of course, of Sam returning after that long layoff with her ACL injury, and her minutes continued to be managed at both club and country. Now, some interesting notes from the game was the interchange of positions. Some are calling it total football. Of course, Steph Catley ventured a little further forward than what you'd expect from a centre-back. Of course, Joe Montemuro talked about this as an option of breaking down sides with a low defensive block. It also explains why Alana Kennedy was moved into that holding midfield role, as she can sort of step back into that defensive role to cover Steph Catley if she goes on a forward run. She looked a completely different player, Alana Kennedy, that is, albeit briefly against England. Her passing range and defensive nous allowed her to cover for Steph whilst providing us with a masterclass in passing, it's fair to say. So a good hit out, and the final one before the Asian Cup kicks off next year in March. Don't forget about that one. Make sure you secure your tickets if you haven't got them already. I think it's going to be a fantastic tournament, and our Matildas look in incredible form going into that one. So fingers crossed for the girls that they all stay fit and keep their form up for that tournament. Now let's head over to Socceroos where there was a small matter of the World Cup draw last weekend. Now, the Socceroos have been drawn in Group D, which means they will be facing host nation USA, Paraguay, and the winner of the UEFA Playoff C, which could be either Turkey, Romania, Slovakia, or Kosovo. The Socceroos will kick off the World Cup tournament in Vancouver, and they will play the winner of that UEFA C playoff in the first game. That game will be broadcast here in Australia on Sunday, June 14th at 2 p.m. local time. They then travel to Seattle to take on the host nation USA at 5 a.m. Australian time on Saturday, the 20th of June for that game against the USA. And then the final game will be Friday, the 26th of June at 12 p.m. Australian time against Paraguay, which feels like it is already going to be a very important game in the context of the Socceroos getting through or navigating that group stage and then getting through to the round of 32. So let's hope it is a good tournament. It's a fantastic draw for the Socceroos, I believe. Very evenly matched pool by the looks of things. Of course, the game isn't played on paper, but it's a great opportunity for the Socceroos to make a run to the later stages of the World Cup, I believe. All right, and thankfully, let's round it out with injury news, but there's only one injury to bring you this week, although it is a pretty heartbreaking one. It is, of course, Tameka Yallop, who appeared to injure her hamstring and was very visibly upset as she was substituted out of Brisbane Roar's game in the first half. The severity of the injury is yet to be confirmed, and of course, we will keep you updated, but it does signify a big blow to Yallop's hopes of making that Asian Cup squad, where Joe Montemurro has already bigged her up, and it looked like she was pretty much set to be in that side. But that is the way the cookie crumbles sometimes, unfortunately, and we wish Tameka all the best in her recovery. But that's it for the headlines. Let's head over to the weekly wrap in just a second. All right, weekly wrap time, and let's start with our ladies in USA, where Morgan Aquino started and played the full game in goals for DC Power in their 2-1 loss to Dallas Trinity. They now drop to 8th in the USL table. Now to England, where Arsenal beat Liverpool 2-1 in the WSL. It looks as though Kyra Cooney-Cross is working her way into that starting 11 of Arsenal with another start, and playing 68 minutes this time, whilst Caitlin Ford played 33 minutes from the bench. Emily Van Egmond came on in the first half for an injured teammate in Leicester City's 3-0 loss to Manchester City. She went on to play 56 minutes in that one. Claire Hunt started and played the full game for Tottenham in their surprise 2-1 win over Aston Villa. Charlotte Grant, of course, remains sidelined with injury. Katrina Gorry, she played the full game for West Ham in midfield in their narrow 2-1 loss to Manchester United. Brighton and Hove Albion got a 1-0 win against London City Lionesses away from home. It was a battle of the Aussies, with Charlize Rule and Alani Kennedy both turning out for their sides as late substitutes. Rule played 7 minutes for Brighton and Kennedy 4 minutes for London City. Now, in the biggest shock results of the WSL for this weekend, it was Everton inflicting Chelsea's first defeat in 34 league games with a 1-0 victory. Claire Wheeler was a big part of the victory for Everton in midfield. She played the full game. Ellie Carpenter started and played the full game for Chelsea, whilst Sam Kerr was a second half substitute, playing 36 minutes. Now to Germany, where Jamila Rankin started for her side, TSG Hoffenheim, playing the full game in their 3-0 victory over Union Berlin. Hayley Rasso played 19 minutes as a substitute in Eintracht Frankfurt's heavy 5-0 loss to Bayern Munich. Now rounding out the women's action in Italy, where Alex Chidiac started for Como before being withdrawn in the second half after 64 minutes of her side's 1-0 win over Parma. The victory puts Como in second on the table. Sassuolo went down 2-1 to Lazio. Jessica Nash started, played 64 minutes and picked up a yellow card, whilst Jacinta Galabadarachi came on at halftime as a substitute. Now let's head over to men's action in the English second division, where Lewis Miller played a full game for Blackburn in his side's 1-1 draw with Ipswich Town in midweek. He then backed up on the weekend against Sheffield Wednesday. However, the match was abandoned after 59 minutes due to a waterlogged pitch. Second time that Blackburn have had a game abandoned this season. Very unfortunate. Last time they were overturned, or they did have the lead against Ipswich Town, which was that replay game. However, Ipswich Town came back and got the draw there. Let's hope the same fate doesn't happen, because Blackburn were in front 1-0 as well in that one against Sheffield Wednesday. Now, Sam Silvera, he came on after 68 minutes in Middlesbrough's 4-1 win over Hull City at the weekend. Cameron Burgess contributed to a clean sheet for Swansea City in a much-needed 2-0 win over Oxford United at the weekend. It's the Welsh team's first victory since late October. Hayden Matthews also started for Portsmouth against Charlton Athletic, with the match abandoned at 0-0 after 12 minutes due to a medical emergency in the crowd. Adrian Segicic was on the bench for that one. Callum Elder played until stoppage time for Derby County in a 3-1 loss to Leicester City at the weekend. Now, dropping down a division to League One, Rafael Borges Rodriguez played a full game for Wigan Athletic in their 1-0 win over Burton Albion on Wednesday morning in league action. Tyrese Francois was an unused substitute. Rafael Borges Rodriguez then played the first half as Wigan Athletic advanced on penalties against Barrow at the weekend. Tyrese Francois played 55 minutes in the same game, which was an FA Cup tie. Alex Robertson came on after 59 minutes for Cardiff City in a 3-2 win over Huddersfield at the weekend. Now heading north to Scotland, where Cameron Devlin played all of Hearts' 1-1 draw with Kilmarnock in midweek league action. He then backed up playing another full game, this time as Hearts beat Celtic 2-1 in a top-of-the-table clash. The result ensures Hearts sit at the top of the Scottish Premiership, 3 points ahead of Celtic with a game in hand. Ryan Strain, he was subbed on in the 54th minute for Dundee FC as they drew 2-2 with Rangers. Zach Sapsford started, played 62 minutes and scored one of Dundee's goals in that one. Keanu Bacchus played 78 minutes for St Mirren as the side drew 3-3 with Aberdeen in midweek action. Nick Suman was an unused substitute for Aberdeen, whilst Nicholas Milanovic and Kasuni Yengi weren't in the squad for Aberdeen in worrying signs. Keanu Bacchus then backed it up at the weekend, scoring a goal for St Mirren in their 2-0 win over Dundee United. He came on around the hour mark for his side in that one. So fair to say he had a fair impact as a substitute. Ryan Strain played 82 minutes for Dundee United, as did Zach Sapsford, both of them being substituted off at the same time. Apostolos Stamatolopoulos came on in the 74th minute of Motherwell's 0-0 draw with Falkirk in midweek action. Oscar Priestman played the full game in midfield, whilst Johnny Katrumbis played 19 minutes off the bench. Then at the weekend, Apostolos Stamatolopoulos also got on the score sheet for Motherwell as they beat Livingston 3-0. Johnny Katrumbis played 69 minutes, whilst Oscar Priestman got 21 minutes off the bench as a substitute. Ryan McGowan came on in the 70th minute for Livingston, whilst Teti Yengi played the whole game. Martin Boyle opened the scoring for Hibs in a 3-0 win over Falkirk at the weekend. Jack Iredale played a full game in defence for Hibs in that one, helping his side to a clean sheet there. Now to Germany, where Jackson Irvine put in a strong performance for St. Pauli as they beat Borussia Mönchengladbach 2-1 in midweek cup action. So much needed victory for St. Pauli, who have been struggling lately. Connor Metcalf came on in stoppage time for the side in that German Cup tie. Then at the weekend, Jackson Irvine played a full game as St. Pauli drew 1-1 with Cologne on Sunday morning in German league action. Connor Metcalf was subbed on in the 68th minute for his side. Now to Spain, where Matt Ryan played the full game in goal for Levante in their 2-0 loss to Osasuna, which keeps them planted in the relegation places in La Liga. Then down to the Spanish second division, where Alamobil played 79 minutes for Castellon as they beat Deportivo La Coruña 3-1 at the weekend. Croatia, and Anthony Kalic was a late substitute, getting 5 minutes, whilst Fran Karasic was on the bench for Hajduk Split as they drew 1-1 with Dinamo Zagreb at the weekend. To the Netherlands now, where Jordi Boss picked up an assist after coming on in the 62nd minute of Feyenoord's 6-1 win against PEC Zwolle, which saw the side consolidate second position in the league table, and it's great to see Jordi Boss continuing his return from injury. Alan Hrustic played a full game for Heracles Alamelo as they snatched a last gasp 1-1 draw against Telstar. Max Ballard played 85 minutes for NAC Breda in a 1-0 loss to Sparta Rotterdam at the weekend. Now to Denmark, where Paul Itzo was in goal for Randers as they lost 2-1 to AGF. Mohamed Toure came on after 56 minutes for the side. His brother Musa started and played 55 minutes. Now to Serbia, where Miloš Degenek played the full game for his side Baka Topola in their much-needed 2-1 win over Spartak Subotica. To Czechia, where Garin Quol got some minutes in both midweek and weekend action for his side. He continued his good form, picking up an assist in Sparta Prague's 2-1 win against SK Artis Brno on Thursday in Europa Conference League action. He was then subbed on in the 62nd minute for Sparta Prague in their 1-0 win against Sigma Olomouc at the weekend in Czech League action. Then rounding out the action in Japan for the final time this season as the J-League wrapped up, Mitch Duke played the first half of Maqueda Zelvia's 1-0 loss to Kashiwa Reysol on Saturday. Thomas Deng came on in the 64th minute for Yokohama F. Marinos in a 2-1 loss to Kashima Antlers, rounding out a disappointing season for Marinos. All right, that is it for the weekly wrap. Next up is Players of the Week, and we'll wrap it up for this week's episode. All right, Players of the Week. Now, we could have gone with Alana Kennedy with her an absolute belter of a goal against New Zealand in that Matildas game, but I thought I'd go someone different for our Women's Player of the Week, and it is none other than Steph Catley. Fresh off the back of a brilliant performance for the Matildas, she then goes and backs up with another full game for Arsenal in their 2-1 win over Liverpool, and she provided an assist in the game from centre-back nonetheless. Well done, Steph. Keep fit and firing, and we hope you bring that form into Matilda's camp for the Asian Cup. Now to our Men's Player of the Week. We had a few options this week, plenty of goals, plenty of assists, and a couple of clean sheets from players contributing to their club side's performances abroad, but we're going to go with Riley McGree, who scored his first goal of the season, playing 86 minutes of Middlesbrough's 4-1 win over Hull City at the weekend. Fantastic stuff, as Middlesbrough are flying in the championship in second place at the moment, and more contributions like that from Riley McGree will be very important for his side's bid to get promoted to the Premier League and hopefully keep him firing for the Socceroos, because he feels like a vital piece of the puzzle in the attacking third for the Socceroos. All right, well, that is it for another week of the Aussie Football Passport. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks again for supporting the show by liking, listening, and all the things that you're doing. Really appreciate it. Also, don't forget that I did make an appearance on the Brisbane Football Review podcast over the weekend. I will share the link to that episode on social media, which I have already done, but I will put it in the show notes of this episode. It's a bit of a longer one than this one. Of course, that's what happens when you've got multiple people talking about a fantastic World Cup draw and an Asian Cup on the horizon, but make sure you check that one out if you got some time to do so, but really appreciate your support nonetheless. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode. It's goodbye for now.